Welcome. In this episode of the channel, Mystery Yonga, we will talk about a topic that is worrying each of us in different ways, all over the world. The pandemic that is radically changing our habits, our lifestyle, which limits our freedom and which tragically is causing thousands of deaths all over the world, exceeding the record figure of 1,300,000 victims so far. A number destined to grow up. We will talk about COVID-19. In this video we will try to summarize the scientific information on the coronavirus, to recall the official news on the origin of the pandemic, the fundamental steps that led to such a rapid spread of the virus all over the world. But above all, we will try to put together the most widespread conspiracy theories on COVID-19. We will try to understand together what these conspiracies are, where they arise, from which suspicions or evidence they are supported. Coronavirus is a virus that have existed in nature for a very long time, mainly present in some species of animals. Bats, camels, and other animals are natural hosts of this virus. In the virus's evolution, it happens that the virus adapts to be able to infect a new host, sometimes making the jump of species, from a particular animal to another species of animal, and in some cases from animal to human. COVID-19 is a disease associated with a strain of SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, previously not detected in humans. The official name of the COVID-19 syndrome is SARS-CoV-2. The successor of what we all know as SARS that emerged in late 2002 in China, whose full name is SARS-CoV-1. The two viruses belong to the same family, but they are not the same. Actually, the SARS of 2002 counted 8,000 cases worldwide, a radically lower number compared with COVID-19 infections, but with a terribly higher mortality. 1 over 10 people did not survive to SARS. The mortality rate of COVID-19 is lower than that of SARS and was estimated at the beginning of the pandemic between 2 and 3%. A percentage that has decreased over time with the improvement of the mathematical models of calculation and obviously the progress on drug therapies to struggle the effects of the virus. The first case of coronavirus was recorded on a 50-year-old man from Hubei province in China in November 2019. But the news was disclosed by the Chinese government only in mid-January 2020. A few days later, an outbreak of the virus linked to the Wuhan fish market will be identified, but the Chinese authorities will inform the World Health Organization only on the 31st of December 2019. In mid-January 2020, the first cases outside the borders of China are registered, and in some European countries the first checks at the airport are done. From that point, the virus will spread like wildfire throughout the world, recording tens of thousands of cases and thousands of deaths over time, up to the frightening numbers we know today. Every country has managed the pandemic with the means at its disposal, through controls, tightening of rules and partial or total lockdowns that have limited people's freedom, movement and social life. Since the beginning there were those who shouted about conspiracy, and these rumors were spread not only among ordinary people. These claims have been made by relevant world politicians such as the President of the United States, and other political leaders in almost every country. The accusation of this conspiracy theory is directed at the Chinese government, complicit in experiments on SARS for the creation of a new biological weapon, which allegedly took place in a laboratory right next to the Wuhan fish market. The virus would later be released voluntarily or accidentally into the environment, then making the Wuhan market the site of the first confirmed outbreak of COVID-19. Now we have to stop and ask ourselves the question, why do China and other world countries spend billions on research and development of biological weapons, to then keep them in a drawer and not use them? This doubt finds strength in this conspiracy theory, but it is not the only one. Some facts have given further strength to this theory, transforming it into a potentially real hypothesis. In April, virologist Luc Montagnier, the 2008 Nobel Prize in Medicine for his contribution to HIV research, declared that the new coronavirus had been manipulated in the laboratory, and its spread was probably the result of human error. At the same time, the Trump administration did pressure on CIA to investigate and find evidence confirming the escape of the virus from the Wuhan laboratory. But does really exist a laboratory in Wuhan that handles viruses that are potentially dangerous to humans? This laboratory exists, and it is not far from the fish market where the first outbreak was found. The director of the laboratory in Wuhan affirmed the presence in the laboratory of 3 live strains of coronavirus, but at the same time denying that one of them is that of the COVID-19. The latest in a series of revelations supporting this theory is the one called Yan Report. Named after Chinese researcher Li Mengyan of the Hong Kong School of Public Health, the virologist makes strong accusations, also involving the Beijing government and the World Health Organization, declaring that they were aware of the danger to humans of the new coronavirus strain SARS-CoV-2 long time before the beginning of the pandemic. Li Meng claims that she has proof of these conspiracy, and that the virus is the product of bioengineering and not a natural evolution. Today, Yan is in a secret location in the United States due to the danger of retaliation from the Chinese government. Actually, China has certainly been appointed by public opinion for a lack of transparency in the initial stages of the pandemic. Li Wenliang, the Wuhan ophthalmologist among the first to talk about the coronavirus epidemic in China, who later died of being infected, was one of the first to talk about the spread of a new virus. But for this he was invited and forced to retract by the Communist Party of Beijing. Later on, 5 other Chinese doctors were arrested for the same reason, and then others and still others, accused of spreading false information potentially dangerous for the social impact. There are numerous declarations that support the COVID-19 theory as a virus created in the laboratory, as a result of human research. But this theory finds the rejection of the scientific community that in the study of the coronavirus has not found signs of artificial manipulation. Therefore, scientists considers it a virus that evolved naturally by making the jump between species and finding a new host in the human. Majority of virologists say that a virus modified in the laboratory shows characteristic genetic evidence which was not found by the analysis of the COVID-19 genome. The official voice of the international scientific community is that the virus is a natural occurrence. Another theory prevalent among people who believe that the coronavirus is a deliberately implemented pandemic is that of the New World Order. The New World Order is an alleged oligarchic and secret power organization that brings together some of the richest and most powerful people on the planet. Individuals who own and control much of the global material wealth and who strive to take control of every country in the world in a totalitarian way, imposing with various strategies a dictatorship masqueraded as democracy in order to obtain total domination of the world. On what is based this hypothesis? Who can threaten the dominance of the rich? The powerful men, and the powerful men of the world must be allies. And who can undermine the excessive power of the rich and powerful men? The people, and the people must be controlled. Now let's compare this theory with the restrictions and impositions dictated by the pandemic. Prohibition of entry or exit from the outside that limits the own city. Suspension of events. Demonstrations and events in every form of public or private place, also cultural, recreational or religious. The closure of educational services at all levels. Suspension of all non-essential services. Closure of commercial activities with the exception of those of public utility. Obligation to wear required personal protective equipment and to adopt specific behavioral procedures. The list of limitations and temporary suspension of individual freedom for public health reasons is still long, and varies in some forms from city to city, between countries in the world, and in proportion to the risk level of the place and moment. You will easily understand that the conspiracy theory of the New World Order fits perfectly with the dramatic reality and frustration of the population everywhere. It is not the first time and it will not be the last that the rich and powerful men will be pointed out as evil of the world. Many historical revolutions were born with these assumptions. Sometimes to simply transfer power from one faction to another, other times for right causes. The New World Order, without a valid reason to establish a dictatorship without provoke the violent reaction of the people, would have voluntarily created COVID-19 and infected the world population with a rapidly spreading virus. A virus lethal enough to terrorize the world, in order to being able to control it with the fear, limiting the freedom and impoverishing the people. But even if logical, and easily understandable, by what evidence is this theory supported? Unfortunately, like many conspiracy theories, the facts supporting it are hardly demonstrable. Statements, suspicious actions, speculations but nothing more. A theory that inevitably clash with the lack of evidence. Another widespread conspiracy theory is the one that links the coronavirus pandemic to 5G technology. Actually, the development of 5G has been the subject of dispute since its implementation. About 2 years ago, even before the spread of COVID-19. The controversy over 5G once the coronavirus pandemic began would have joined it, making 5G the ideal means of spreading the virus, therefore, a conspiracy strategy that sees the development of the communications technology to be spread worldwide, also capable of stimulating the spread of biological weapons such as viruses. In this case, COVID-19. But according to this theory, what would be the correlation between 5G and coronavirus? 5G networks have a negative and weakening effect on the immune system, exponentially increasing the risk from exposure to radiations of the radio frequency repeaters necessary for this technology. Furthermore, this conspiracy theory states that 5G networks can facilitate the spread of viruses and bacteria in the environment, causing them to multiply uncontrollably thanks to the effects of radiation of the 5G. Indeed, there is a correlation between electromagnetic fields produced by telecommunication systems and human health. The effects on the organism of radio frequency and microwave electromagnetic fields generated mainly by telecommunications and radio and television broadcasting systems depend above all on their frequency measured in hertz of the fields and their intensity. The frequency, in particular, is the parameter that most determines the mechanisms of interaction between the electromagnetic field and the cells of the organism. Hypersensitivity to electromagnetic fields when exposed can cause symptoms such as headache, insomnia, weakness, reduced memory and concentration deficit, localized or widespread pain typical of a flu, skin rashes, hearing, visual and balance disturbances, mood and character changes, neuroticism or apathy, pressure changes that can cause nasal bleeding, heart palpitations that simulate a state of anxiety or restlessness. Really not a well-being list. But does 5G technology have the potential to cause these negative effects on humans? Well, like previous telecommunications technologies, 5G is also subjected to strict controls to maintain safety standards, and so far no studies have been able to demonstrate a correlation between these technologies and the health of our body. However, the doubts about 5G technology remain, and not all countries are agreeing to its implementation in the territory, carrying out further studies to certify the 5G safety. There is a further consideration to be done. Man is not the only one exposed to electromagnetic and radio frequency fields. Actually, several studies have now ascertained that animals are sensitive to the frequencies and intensity of sound and electromagnetic waves. For example, they are able to perceive sound waves and their frequencies much more intensely than humans. The night moth, for example, picks up sounds of 240,000 Hz, a frequency 10 times higher than humans. And elephants can hear very low frequencies of 1 Hz, which humans perceive only as a very slow vibration. This sensitivity of animals much higher than that of humans in relation to exposure to magnetic and radio frequency changes can have an effect on them, and consequently on the ecosystem. Furthermore, industrial evolution and the expansion of man on the territory has created imbalances on the global ecosystem, leading many species of animals to be removed from some natural areas, forcing them to share some spaces with another animal, the human. So, perhaps, it is not too surprising if the interaction with animal species that were previously confined to virgin areas with minimal human presence leads to the spread of diseases and viruses between the two species that previously were not detected. And this should make us think about how important it is to protect nature and the ecosystem of the only planet we have. In summary, although there is a correlation between electromagnetic fields and radio frequencies and human health, the studies and checks have the aim of keeping exposures to these fields below the safety thresholds and without having negative effects on health. No scientific study has shown a link between 5G technology and the coronavirus pandemic, making this conspiracy theory just a theory that cannot be demonstrated by now. These were the three main conspiracy theories linked to the COVID-19 pandemic. There are other conspiracy theories related to the coronavirus, which also involve relevant personalities from the world scene such as Bill Gates or Soros, but we don't have time to discuss them all. If you have interest on this topic, we will expand it in a second part of the conspiracy theories related to COVID-19. And it will be useful if you suggest some conspiracy theories that you consider particularly interesting and reliable. Tell us it in a comment. Whatever you think, whether you are in favor of a particular conspiracy theory or not, we want to make a clarification. Conspiracy theory or not, COVID-19 is a terrible reality that we must face together. A reality that has done until now 1,300,000 victims worldwide, and who will do more in the future. Therefore, respect the rules implemented, and take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and the others for the common well-being. And we came to the conclusion of this video. I guess each of you has your own idea. Leave it in a comment and tell me, is the legend real? Give a like and subscribe to the channel, Mystery Omba. Other videos are coming soon. Don't forget to share these fascinating stories with friends. See you at the next mystery.